become champions.
Hello and welcome to episode 20 of Celtic Rumours TV, the Bawz and Bovril podcast with your host Mark and myself Paul. On today's show we will talk through our weekly transfer rumours and gossips around Celtic. And seeing as a Scottish Football Week, we will take a look back at some of Celtic's greatest and lows in the Scottish Cup competition. Firstly though, I would like to dedicate this show to Donny 1972. Whose late brother sadly passed away at the end of April. Donny's brother was a St Johnstone supporter, and with St Johnstone winning the Scottish Cup yesterday, we hope that it was a bit of comfort to yourself, Donny. Mark and myself, we'd like to wish our condolence to you, Donny, as I'm sure all the guys on our forum platform wish our condolence to you as well. Hail, hail from us all, Donny. Mark, I'll hand off to you for weekly shout-outs.
Oh, thanks very much, Paul. Thanks again for everything you do. A shout there for Donny on the forum. Just ROH as well. He had a wee bit of bad news on Friday. He's going to have to get chemotherapy again. So I'm sure I speak for everybody as well on the site and on here when I say that we're all rooting for you, Richie, and you're in our prayers, and we're sure you'll smash it again. The usual shout-outs just to Tim Alloy and Malika and young Ben, which gives me I need to mind and mail Steph to see how Ben is. I've not spoke to him in a while. Just the guys in the chat, see there, Mikey, and he's grinding away on FIFA. I didn't even qualify for it this week, Mikey. Iceman and Bobby that doesn't come to the forum, but he's here every week. Nice to see you again, Bobby. AGG, he's always there as well. Nice to see you lads. Let's go, when you go, Paul, let's go.
Perfect. Our guest on today's show will be Barry. This is Iceman from the live chat, and he'll be joining us shortly on the show with myself, Max. So firstly, Celtic, bit of Celtic gossip and rumours surrounding Celtic. Long-term Celtic target Albert Eyes of Bovista won't be coming to Celtic anytime soon, as Bovista have slapped a £10 million asking price on the Honduras striker. Celtic have been tracking the player since he spent time in America and have failed to sign him on numerous occasions, and recently failed with a $3 million bid back in January when his former club Houston Dynamo rejected the bid. Celtic exodus is well underway now, with John Joe Kenny, Diego Lascelles and Mohsen Looney returning to their parent clubs. Will we start seeing outgoings now in the next couple of weeks or next couple of days? As it's being reported that Celtic have terminated the contract of Olivier and Cham, and myself and Mark will talk more about this later on the show. Aston Villa have reportedly made a bid for Celtic youngster and midfielder David Turnbull in the region of £7 million. Do Celtic cash in on the player now, or do we wait and build up the Turnbull's transfer value, and is he a key player for Celtic going forward next season? Mark and myself have been talking about the obstacles surrounding the Eddie Howe management situation at Celtic, and one thing that kept popping up was that his guardian leave with Bournemouth till the end of the season, and his backroom staff also being contracted Bournemouth. With Bournemouth failing to make it to the playoffs final this weekend, is it now time for Celtic to get the manager in place and with his backroom staff as soon as possible and start to rebuild immediately? this, of course, is that Eddie Howe is going to be our next manager, or will Celtic fans be way off the ball, and Celtic will appoint someone we really didn't see coming? So, Mark, that's our first bit of gossip. So, basically, the main thing is Eddie Howe, that if it was his guardian leaf, Mark, and the backroom staff, that there's no, if Eddie Howe is the man, there's no why Celtic shouldn't be appointing him, really, is there? If
If
you know.
it is going to be Eddie Howe, I'm expecting an announcement this week, Paul. I
Mm-hmm.
don't see why there's not going to be any hold-ups. If it has been that gardening leave thing or the thing with the coaches, whatever it's been, it's all over and done with now. So there's no hold-up. And if it's Eddie Howe that's kicked his heels a bit, self to say to him, it's now or never, Eddie. Geez,
But you think,
if it's no,
do-
if it's a no, we need to.
would you think they would have any maybe agreed with Bournemouth, maybe a package for the coaches coming already, Mark, and that they didn't want an announcement because they were involved in the playoffs? Do you think that maybe that could have been one of the reasons why this has all been delayed?
I think it probably, if it was part of the deal, then of course it would be. There's no one to kind of hinder Bournemouth's chances of promotion when the players know that there's going to be uproar behind the scenes, no matter if they go up or down. I mean, if they get promoted to the Premier League, was it going to cost Celtic a lot more money to get these coaches in?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was part of something to do with it as well.
Exactly. Maybe was it they're going to ask for a bigger asking price, or maybe the coaches themselves wanted a bigger wage, Mark, if they were going to get a bigger salary if Bournemouth did go to the Premier League. They were all kind of things that maybe would have been renegotiated between Celtic and Bournemouth and Eddie Howe. So look, it's over. So if Eddie Howe is the man, surely, Mark, there's nothing else there, really, as you said, like that.
There's
Why he should be announced, especially.
an announcement in the next few days, this week
And
at least.
do you think it has to be in the next few days, Mark, or can we afford to delay a bit longer? You know.
Oh, it's back to the thing is he been working behind the scenes making plans?
Hmm.
Do you know, or is he coming in? If it is him, is he coming in starting from scratch? And if it's no him, what have they been doing behind the scenes? Do you know what I mean? But it needs to be dealt with sooner rather than later. We can't let it drag on anymore. There's
No.
and I mean everybody that's got anything to play for now. Well, the season's basically ended apart from the European uh, competitions and that. So for me, there's no reason why there shouldn't be an announcement this week.
Especially with the uncertainty of players wanting to leave, Mark, and everything in there. Like these need to be addressed straight away, so the manager can come in, get the players he wants in, and start building a squad that he wants. Instead of going letting it late in a transfer, like Celtic would usually do, and basically sign second-rated players, Mark, isn't it?
I don't think they can afford to do that this time, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
The players were expecting to leave and the players were needing. I don't think they can dither and wait to the last dying days of the transfer window. I think we'll be getting players in a lot early, as soon as the chances are there. And if there is a manager in place, I think he'll have players that have agreed to come to the club already. We know that talk's going all the time with agents when they
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be going on, but I'd like to think that the manager, whether it's Eddie Howe or somebody else, have got players lined up, and it's just a case of when they come in, dotting the T's, dotting the I's and crossing the T's,
Mm-hmm.
getting it finished.
And what about the lone players, Mark, leaving this week? The likes of John Joe Kenny, Diego Laxell, and Elyounoussi. Would you take any of them back?
I'd,
Maybe on the form of the,
I'd take Elliot
you know.
again at the right price. I would
Mm-hmm.
say that I think he's been a decent player for us, but he could be better, and a better team
Mm-hmm.
would have been a lot better. I thought when we signed him, I said it the other night we spoke about him, I thought he would have been Scotland's Player of the Year. I thought he would have come up here and tore it up.
Mm-hmm.
His first year here, he had a bit of unlucky with injuries and that didn't help. But this year he showed flashes of what kind of player he can be, and I would take him if the price was right. The other
Mm-hmm.
two, like Salt and Kenny looked the part when he first came in, but I don't. He just
But do you think, Mark, like with Kenny, as you said, like he started off well when he came in, but you think this lack of confidence in the team maybe shifted onto him, that it spread through him as well, that the team was performing so poorly, or was he actually just so poor and he was actually found out, you know?
Uh, I think it was just he's been that poor that he was found out. I can't mind who it was, whether it's Barry or Michael that comes on that says he's seen
Hmm.
well, not seen a lot of him in Germany because he hardly got a game, but when he was there, he didn't do too well.
Yes, Hector Berlin, wasn't he was playing over was he playing at,
I
what
don't
was it, Schalke, I think? Schalke, I think, was it?
think it was Schalke, something like that it was. But
One of the worst defences in Germany as well. He played under. So look, hopefully they can move on from these players, Mark, and bring in maybe permanent right back and left back that we haven't have in a long way, because it always seems to be loan players that we've taken in those two positions that we struggled in numerous of seasons now since Tierney left, and we had no real right back in the team, Mark, for years, have we?
no,
You know.
we've not a decent right back for Lustig.
Hmm.
And I would have kept Lustig. I've said it at the time. I didn't think it was like Scott Brown. He wasn't as pacey as he'd been, but Lustig would have probably stayed here for another year just as a squad player. As I've said before, there's plenty of games to get played. He'd have got plenty of game time.
Hmm.
If Celtic are loaning in players, for me it should be exceptional players. I don't mean like top. We're never going to get. Do you know what I mean? I'm somebody like that, Mbappe or that, but it should be a team that's going to improve the team right away. It should be a player that's going to come in and take the team up a wee notch.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
we're signing journeyman loanees for positions, and as I said before, it's the lack of planning that we've got so many loanees in the team. We've got so many players all getting into the last year of their contract. It's just total short-sightedness for the board and for Liverpool.
Hmm. Exactly. So we're going to welcome our first guest to the show. It's Barry, as you know, is Iceman from our forum page, and Mark, you trying to connect him. And
But
before we get to Barry, like, what a strange weekend this has been, Mark, for Celtic supporters not being in the Scottish Cup final, hasn't it?
oh, it has well, I didn't even watch yesterday's game, to be honest with you. I put a wee stream on it when I kind of clicked back for it, but
Hmm.
it wasn't really. It was just 'cause Celtic weren't in it. It was weird after so many
Hmm.
years of dominating and being there. It's just, but well done to St Johnstone for. I mean, you can't a double for a wee club like St Johnstone. That's a great season they've had.
Hmm. And what about yourself, Barry? Welcome to the show again. How was it for you, Celtic not being in the Scottish Cup final for a long time? Like it was just a red feeling yesterday, wasn't it? You know.
It was a strange, considering we've been in the last four, and we're used to being in finals and winning trophies. It was certainly a bit bizarre to see it contested between St Johnstone and Hibs, but I thought the best team won. I did watch it. I thought St Johnstone were by far the better team. They seemed to be really well organised and well drilled, and I thought that's how to defend your box. I don't know how much you guys seen of it, but
Hmm.
obviously the last sort of 10, 15 minutes, Hibs sort of threw everything to the pump, and the three centre halves were just magnificent for St Johnstone. They won every single header in that box, and one of the commentators mentioned that it was actually at half time before even any of that happened. They'd mentioned that these three guys, they take pride in their defending, they love defending. And I
Hmm.
feel that's what we've kind of missed this season. We've missed guys, defenders that just love to defend. But these three guys, they were immense. The St Johnstone team, I thought, were very, very good. The best team won, like I said. They had multiple other chances to put the game to bed that it didn't take, which left it a bit nervy for them. But yeah, fair play to them. Congratulations. But yeah, certainly strange, and hopefully we can maybe reflect on this to see. It's maybe time for reflection. The quadruple treble, to win four trebles consecutively, it's an unbelievable achievement, and it just,
Hmm.
without winning anything this year, it may be time to reflect on what an achievement it actually was.
Exactly, Mark. It just shows how far like this Celtic team came and how we crumbled this season that we couldn't even get a good cup run in the League Cup and the Scottish Cup. Getting knocked out by Ross County and then getting knocked out by Rangers in the fourth round. It just summed up the whole season, didn't it? How bad we were.
It
You
was,
know.
it was just a continuation of the league. That's all it was. We never, you know, you can still have a bad season in the league, but have a good cup run. Even win a cup. That's the biggest thing I can't get my head around, Paul. That we just didn't even contest for a trophy really this year. To go
Hmm.
winning that amount of trophies, with basically the same squad to where we are now. It's just I can't get my head around it at all. That it fell so fast, so quickly. Fell so far
The
so
best team.
quickly.
Yeah, that just sums it up, Barry, don't it? How quick we fell into this season that we couldn't even get a cup run going. You know.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a bad
Is it,
spot
Barry? Actually,
for
there.
the whole
Sorry.
season.
Is it if you have, we say, like a pure league win like Celtic had this season? Is it hard to change that to a cup run, or does it actually continue as a player? Like, is it hard to switch off from the poor run in the league? You know.
Well, for us, it wasn't, because like Mark said, it was just a continuation of our form in the league. We were in a right bad
Hmm.
spot back in, I think it was October, November time when we played Ross County, and we went into that
Hmm.
game with no confidence at all, and it was reflective, in the result, losing 2-0 at home to Ross County in the Cup. And yet, yeah, we never got any sort of relief from our league form. We just continued it into the cup competitions. Sometimes it is a bit different when you go into competitions that are, you can adapt your game plan, because it's knockout football. You only get one opportunity.
Hmm.
One opportunity at it. So, so sometimes you do adapt your game plan when you're playing cup football. But like I said, our league form was just continued into the cup. Against Ross County and Rangers. It was just a continuation of what we've seen for the past weeks, few months. We just never managed to get out of that rut and go on that run that might have given us a bit of an injection into the season. But no, unfortunately, it just wasn't to be this year for us.
But it was a great achievement, Mark, by Craig Davison. Is it Craig Davison, the St. John's manager,
Callum,
that
Callum,
Callum gave, but winning 2 trophies, one more than Steven Gerrard? So we have to congratulate him on that, don't we?
well, definitely for a small club like St Johnstone to win one trophy is fantastic for them. To win a cup double is just again unbelievable. Kind of as it shows you what kind of season it's been. That a
Hmm.
smaller club like St Johnstone can go out there and win both cup competitions. Because
Hmm.
it's not just like Celtic and Rangers. I mean, you expect your likes of Aberdeen, Dundee United, your Hibs. Well, Hibs were in the final, but you expect them to be pushing for cups rather than your likes of St Johnstone's. So
But it's good for the game as well, Barry, ain't it? To see the likes of St. Johnstone lifting the cup. Like it's good for the Scottish game as well that the same two teams aren't winning all the time, isn't this? That Celtic got knocked out by Rangers, that everyone expected Rangers to go on and win that league, but St. Johnstone knocked them out in the semi-finals. That's good for Scottish football as well, isn't it?
Well, I mean, not for us, as Celtic fans. We
Hmm.
want to win everything, but for the game, absolutely. And there's no doubt St Johnstone, they'll be in the lower half of the budget. The teams with the lowest budgets in the league. Along with sort of Hamilton's, Ross County, St Johnstone will be way down there. And for them to win 2 trophies in one season is an incredible achievement. And it's not any fluke either. St Johnstone are
No.
a good outfit. Certainly this season, they're a good outfit. I was listening to a stat yesterday. They've only lost 4 of the last 20 games, and it was 2 of them were against us. One of them, the last home game of the season, which the rest had a lot of players for. But the other 3 games were us at McDermott Park a couple of months back, Aberdeen and Rangers. So they're in a right good run of form. So it's not just like they were fortunate with the draw, or they got a bit lucky in their cup run. This is no this is no accident. They're actually a good outfit, St Johnstone. They're a well-drilled team,
Mhm.
well organised, and you know they've been producing results for a long time now. And you know, like I say, fair play to them. We can maybe take a leaf out of their book with a bit of
It's looking like the
consistency
fact
in it.
that when Callum Davison came into it, that he had a plan into it, and now his plan is starting to come together for St Johnstone into it. You know, you there, Mark?
Me,
Yeah.
he's proved that he's a good enough manager for St Johnstone. I can see another team like the next rung up the ladder looking at Davidson now, and they'll probably be
Mhm.
he'll have caught the IE Championship teams and that down in England, but I don't think that would be a good move for him.
No, like
It's Barry.
if he's happy where he is, yeah, exactly, yeah.
It's Barry.
What?
He's got them playing what we keep talking about. You don't have to have the best players on the park. You just need to have your players doing their job well drilled and well practicing what they're doing. It makes
Mhm.
all the difference at any level.
So I was looking yesterday at the between the Celtic connection and St Johnstone Celtic supporters and ex-players that they have within their squad. Sean Rooney is a Celtic fan, and he's noted he's a Celtic fan, but his grandfather was part of the backroom staff in the 1980s when he was assistant club physio. Xander Clark, who helped St Johnstone get to the final by scoring an injury time header and saving 2 penalties in the semi-final. He's actually a Celtic supporter as well. He's come out and said it. David Witherspoon was a Celtic youth player, and Mark, you mentioned this as well on the live chat in the last game of the season. Jamie McCart, whose father was Chris McCart, and he's the head of the youth academy. Jamie was all.
Clark supports Celtic.
Yes, I read it. I checked it all up. I read that. Yeah, Xander Clark.
Oh, I'm no doubt.
So
I just didn't. I honestly
no,
didn't know that.
no, I checked everything. Went into his Wikipedia and everything and checked everything out and everything. So like there's a good connection of youth players. Like what Barry was saying before in the last podcast, that a lot of players that leave Celtic, they make a name for themselves in the lower league teams, and there we have there like young Jamie McCart, who was part of the youth setup. David Witherspoon was part of the youth setup. It's good to see ex-young Celtic players, Barry, playing in these cup finals, isn't it? That they're able to make their name in other teams, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. And you know what? It's a credit to them, because obviously, you know, if they're in and around the youth team at Celtic at a young age, and you know, unfortunately, they don't make the breakthrough. Sometimes that can affect the young player, but you know, there's a lot of guys that have decided, you know, they're going to use that as motivation to go to other clubs and make a success of their careers. And you know, the young boy McCart, yes, he was outstanding. He was absolutely brilliant. Again, part of that back three that just won absolutely everything that Hibs threw at them. They were a real credit to them. And yes, so like I say, you know, if you don't always make the breakthrough at a club, you know, you can use that as motivation to go on and forge a career at maybe a lower standard. Or, you know, as in some cases, there's players that take that step back to then go on and make an even better career for themselves. So who's to say that, you know, young, is it Jamie McCart? Who's to say he won't get a bigger move? Whether that be, you know, he might come back to Celtic, he might get a move down south, but he's certainly gone about things the right way. He's really, you know, grabbed his opportunity at St Johnstone and done fantastically well. He's got 2 winners' medals this season. And like I say, there was a number of St Johnstone players. Yes, I know we've been linked with him, but the young guy McCann in the centre park, he's a right good player. I really wouldn't mind to see him. I know he's been linked with us for the whole season, but if he was one player that was to come in, I'd be more than happy with that. He looks like a right good player. You know, I watched him yesterday. I watched him a few times. You know, very, very comfortable on the ball. You know, very rarely gives it away. You know, works very hard. He reminds me a bit of Stuart Armstrong, but Armstrong's more of an attacking player, whereas McCann seems to get on the ball, make passes, more so, sit slightly deep. Yeah, he sits slightly deeper. McCann,
what we
but yeah,
kind of
again,
missed
I was
this
impressed
season,
with him
what is
yesterday.
someone who can pass the ball from deep. Like we kind of don't have a player that can do that anymore. So we don't can pass the ball from deep and pick a pass to the.
Soro can do it. He showed us that he can do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some of the passes Sorrow was hitting when he was playing. Sorrow can play the long ball, long clinical passes for the back easily.
Speaking of Zorro, I've been looking up that he's been called up to the Ivory Coast World Cup team, Mark, and he's played very little games for Celtic. But the thing that gets me, like, if like Spurs have been looking at him, the Ivory Coast manager has been looking at him, he called him up. He's like, are they seeing something that we don't be seeing in, like the John Kennedy and Lee Nen haven't been seen in Zorro, that he hasn't been getting his game? Or is it slowly down to the Scott Brown issue that we talked about loads of times?
Well, for me, it was just down to the Scott Brown issue. No question about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Barry,
I
would you agree?
I mentioned that. I can't remember if it was the last one before. Sorrow didn't do anything to deserve getting dropped.
No,
he broke into the team towards the end of last year, and he was very impressive. And everybody was saying he was impressive. It wasn't just the Celtic supporters. He was getting good write-ups in the press. The sports scene guys and that, the pundits, they were very impressed by him, as were the Celtic supporters. But for whatever reason, he was dropped at the team. And like I say, we can only think that reason was to allow Brown back into the team. He didn't have any sort of disastrous games whereby, where you play 3-4 bad games and you think actually you might do a wee stint on the bench and somebody else comes in. He was just dropped and Brown came back in, and Sorrow never really regained his place back. So yeah, I agree with Mark. I think it can only really be because of the Scott Brown factor. Rather than the fact he deserved to lose his place, because in my opinion, he didn't deserve to lose his place in the team.
No. So we're going to move on, and just since the Scottish Cup final, we're going to talk about Celtic's greatest cup moment. Mark, would you know your greatest cup moment? Mine was 2017 final when Tom Roderick stepped up and added on time and scored that goal against Aberdeen. I know Michael said the other day that he was running against Anthony Costine, but it was the fact that it was the last dying minutes of the game that he scored, and it clinched us the cup. So mine is that. Mark, what's yourself?
Mine should be Joe Miller against Rangers. It was that 1991, was it?
89.
Mm-hmm.
89.
89.
Where they shouldn't even have got the throw in, wouldn't it? And that was that.
You stole my thunder there, man. That was mine, because that was my first ever cup final, first ever trip to Handon, and first ever Celtic Rangers match. I think I was about 8-year-old at the time, and I was at that game, and what an atmosphere, what a day. And they were going for the treble that year, 1989. And Joe Miller, I think it was a Gary Stevens, but short with a pass back, and Miller latched onto it and rifled it into the bottom corner. And yeah, that was mine as well, going back a wee bit.
Jeez, you're going back a good bit there now, all right, for me to remember that. So,
it's only 1989. 1989.
7.
And you can't.
I can barely remember. I can remember. I can barely remember the last podcast. Mine said 19.
I think another one, in more recent times would have been a couple of seasons back. When we 2-1 in the final. Edward got the 2 goals, because that was the treble, wasn't it? And that was that was a special moment in the history of the club as well. Another big Scottish Cup win. But maybe that was the reason that Lennon got the job. So you could look at it two ways as well. But that was another big cup final win, big moment in Celtic's history.
There, Pedro brought up the 100th Scottish Cup final, 1985. The next thing we're doing is the best Scottish Cup goal. I was going to pick the Davy Provan free kick for that one, Pedro. That's my favourite Scottish Cup goal for Celtic. And that's actually, I can remember that day. That's wee Kenny McLaughlin that's in the chat. He's one of my oldest friends, wee Kenny. I've known him for 40 odd years. That was his first communion that day, the day we won that cup final 2-1 against Dundee United.
So you won the drink that day, so the whole communion money, Mark, were you?
Kenny's, I'd have been about 10 or 11. Kenny would have been about 8-year-old at the time. But I remember it as if it was yesterday.
My greatest score was scored by Ní Beaton against Kilmarnock on the 12th of August 2015. That he was outside the box, and it was a poor clearance by by Kilmat, and he just walloped the ball into the right top corner. He was known for, like, not this season thing, but he was known to get rockets outside the box, didn't he? And he beat on when he used to score for us, you know.
I used to chip in a few goals, didn't he? You know, done that for a while, and most of them were rockets from outside the area and that. But
Like, dude, I can't remember the last time really we actually scored a real rocket. You know, is that down to do how we play, Barry? Do you think, or we don't have the players really to do that, or you know?
No, I think that's exactly it. I think we're very guilty of overplaying sometimes. You know, we'll have
Yes.
opportunities to take efforts on outside the box, and it's very frustrating because we'll make that extra pass, or we'll look to pass it out wide. I think that's something that we are guilty of quite often. Overplaying at times. There's sometimes if you get within a certain distance of the goal, and you've got a bit of space in front of you, Lee Griffiths, he does it every time. As soon as he gets a sniff, he'll have a strike at goal. But too often for me, we don't take the shots on. We look for that extra pass, and sometimes it's easier for teams to defend against it if they know that we're just going to sort of pass the ball to death sometimes,
look at Christie, Barry.
Aye.
Christie would take a shot from anywhere, wouldn't he?
He takes it. Yeah, that's the other side of the coin, Mark, isn't it? Yeah.
There's a time to do it, and you've got to know your own ability as well. I mean, Christie knows himself that half the time he's not going to go anywhere near the goal, and he should just look for a pass. Because a lot of the times, the pass would be the best option. There's guys in front of him in space, and Christie's still taking a shot for
yes
yards.
But even at that, like we don't kind of see the likes of Callum McGregor running up to support the forwards line. Like this year, I noticed that more like our midfield isn't in line with the forward line. You know what I mean? To create this space, like as Barry said, to either passing it to the sides, passing it back. You know, that seemed to be our real style of play in the last couple of years, hasn't it, Barry? Like this just silly passing, you know?
I suppose that everybody's got their opinion on it, but I just think our brand of football, certainly last season, our brand of football was a very, I don't want to say negative, it was a very predictable brand of football. Very rarely did we do anything at tempo, anything at pace, pass between the lines, get on the front foot, get opposition teams worried. It seemed to be very much sort of backwards and sideways passing, and that's you're going to struggle to break teams down if that's your brand of football. And for whatever reason, I don't know, but last season it seemed to be that was the way, and I think it was reflective in a lot of results and a lot of performances and a lot of post-match interviews that we had with Neil Lennon. It seemed to be the same post-match interview time after time. He kept going, we took too long to pass the ball. We're passing it for the sake of passing. So, yeah, I mean, for me, the brand of football that we played certainly last season.
It's like going to what you're saying there, like that Lennon was constantly highlighting this in his things that we were guilty of holding on to the ball too long. So is that down to the players doing that? And was Lennon trying to change that and the players just weren't connecting with Lennon on that thing? What do you think, Barry?
Well, I mean, I've mentioned previously, my personal belief is that there was a lack of game plan. There was a lack of knowledge, a lack of direction on what he wanted the team to do. And I think that was evident. Like I say, that's just my own personal opinion. I think that was evident every time on the pitch, because it didn't seem like we had a strategy when we went out, right, each player knows their job. This is what I want you to do. When so-and-so's got the ball, I want you to run here. I want you to drop in. Because that just didn't happen game after game after game. So my conclusion that I drew from that was that when the players were going out, they didn't actually know what the game plan was. Lennon didn't have a game plan. I kind of just thought it was a case of, we're going to end up with probably 70% of the possession, and as a result, there's a good chance we're going to win the game. That's the way. That's how I felt that the instruction we were going to get, rather than, right, today we're up against so and so. This is how we're going to beat them. We're going to beat them by playing this style and this system. That's how we're going to do it. I just didn't see that last season for me.
Mark, would you agree with that, yeah?
I'd agree with that. We've spoke about it 100 times before. It was as if, going with what Barry's saying, it's as if it was the players themselves that were like trying to run, like play the game as it happened, rather than as Barry's talking about the game plan. It was just the players were getting there, and it was like they didn't have the game plan, so they were trying to work out their cell phone in the park, and that's where all this monotonous, just wee touchy passes came from.
It was like reactive football, Mark, wasn't it? They were reacting. They weren't under instruction. They were just, I'll receive the ball, right? I'll have a look up and see what's on. And if there's nothing on, I'll just have to come back the way. That's what it seemed to be like. It was reactive football.
That's exactly what it was, Barry.
Like Buzzbomb was saying there in the live chat, like we had 36 more shots on target than any other team in the league. Like that just shows how bad our finishing was. Do you know? That we haven't been taking our chances. Like if we would have scored those 36 more shots, like we wouldn't be in this situation. Barry, do you think it was just down to our poor finishing this season? You know,
I think there's a number of factors, Paul, isn't there? You know, but that's in itself. You know, if you've got 36 attempts on target more than any other team, then yeah, you'd like to be thinking you're going to convert a larger portion of that. But
Christie had 34 of them.
Yeah, that would explain a lot. That's for sure. That would explain a lot. But yeah, I mean, like I say, I think there's a number of factors, and we've spoke about it on previous podcasts. But you know, like I think it's time to sort of forget, put a line through this season and move on and look forward to what next season potentially is going to bring.
So every club around the world, like they always have a player who kind of steps up in domestic clubs. One player for me who always kind of stood up, and I know a lot of people probably won't agree with this choice, was Tom Rogic. I always thought he stepped up in the Scottish Cup. He always came up with a goal. It's just due to fitness and thing really hammering him. Thing not coming to player, Mark, he actually could become Tom Rogic, but he always scored cracking goals, and he won the Scottish Cup 5 times so far as a Celtic player. You know what you think? Your kind of best player in the cup?
See, that's hard to argue with that, Paul. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
I know what you're saying, but I mean, we spoke about it before. For me, it was Rogic's attitude that's kind of held back his career. But over the last few years, I would probably agree with you, I suppose, on that, Paul.
Yeah, you can't argue what he frustrates me more than anything. But you can't argue when he steps up out of nothing. Like, do you know what I mean?
The only other player that you could really realistically put into that kind of category would be Scott Brown, for the length of time he's been there, the cups he's won.
Mm-hmm. You know, but he always had this season, though, Mark. He kind of really went. He didn't do it this season, but like under the Brendan Rodgers and Ronnie Dyler's management, he did pop up with some magical goals for Celtic, didn't he, Rogic? You know,
ability-wise, I don't think you can fault Rogic. You can't. The amount of actual ability that he's got, the natural ability on the ball, but it just he's never applied himself to be a professional football player like the likes of Scott Brown, Kieran.
And it's not just with Celtic, like it's he's the same with Australia. Like he actually can't play 90 minutes either for Australia. Do you know what I mean? So
kind of laid back in that as well, as if it doesn't really bother him that he's.
Why would you have any player? Sorry, Mark, go on.
I'm not going to say he's wasted his career, but he could have had a lot better a career than he's had if he had just applied himself better. But there's no doubt in his natural ability, no.
Barry, would you have any player that would mind that would kind of stand out for Celtic in the Scottish Cup or League Cups, like one player who would have stood out for you in them? You know, that he loved to play those kind of cups. You know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, in recent years, I don't think you're wrong, Paul. I think Tom Rogic, you know, he does seem to step up to the big occasion, and he's proved that. You know, his goals in cup finals, League Cup finals, Scottish Cup finals, and the Glasgow Derby games. You know, he seems to step up to the big occasion. You know, like you guys was. I think, you know, he's had fitness issues, and there's no doubt for me that that's sort of held back his Celtic career. And like you said, Mark, he does have this sort of laid-back style, whereby, you know, the Scottish is a fast-paced, physical game, and I think sometimes, you know, that caught Tom Rogic out a bit. You know, because that's not his. He's not one that, you know, was sprinting about the park. You know, gets on the ball.
He
Gets
reminds
stuck
you
into
of, like,
tackles.
remember Bobertoff for United? Like, he just lays about the pitch, but then he'll just produce a moment of magic in a split second. Like, he just reminds you of that kind of player, wouldn't he? You know?
Yeah, and you know, and he's done that. Like I say, he's done that on many occasions. You know, I think he scored in the semi-final against Rangers. Like I say, he scored a lot of goals against Rangers. He scored a lot of goals in the cup finals. So yeah, probably another one, probably to a slightly lesser extent recently, would be Callum McGregor. I think Callum McGregor's come up with a good few goals in the cup competitions. You know, against sort of Rangers and another few clubs. But yeah, recently I probably would say Rogic is the one that springs to mind. I think probably more so for that goal against Aberdeen. You know, the one
I
that you
think
spoke about earlier.
he'll be remembered for that, won't he? The Aberdeen goal. That's the one thing when Celtic fans, I think, will think about Rogic will be the Aberdeen goal, Mark, won't it? You know?
He's a quote legend now because of that goal, isn't he? He'll always be spoke about in Celtic folklore because of that goal.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of the final piece of the jigsaw for Brendan Rodgers' first season, wasn't it? You know, he would won the League Cup, and this was, you know, the final part of the treble. And you know, at the time it was, I mean, Celtic were dominant that game. They really were. They were fantastic. But you know, it was 1-1, and you know how football works. Sometimes, you know, you can be as dominant as you want, but if you don't put the game to bed, there's always that chance. And I remember that game particularly. I think it was it Johnny Hayes that broke. There was a 2-on-1. Johnny Hayes for Aberdeen. I think Callum McGregor, he got shifted to left back, didn't he? Because Tierney took off with a nasty mouth injury, and McGregor lost the ball, and it was a 2-on-1. And you're just thinking he just has to square this, and it's 2-1 Aberdeen. But he just ever so slightly put it behind the player, and it kept us in the game. And then, like I say, Rogic right at the very end, and that was just the final piece for Rodgers' first season to get the treble. So that is the goal in the game that sticks out. And I think he's right. That's the one that Rogic will probably most fondly be remembered for.
That was a horrible tackle, actually, in Tierney in that final, wasn't it? You know, that
just swung an elbow, wasn't it?
I remember he had to go off of that. Yeah, horrible tackle, like.
He broke the top of his jaw. He had to get dental. He lost a few teeth, and he had to get dental work done. But yeah, it was an innocent elbow, shall we say, that the officials missed.
Exactly. So, like, moving on from that, like, the quadruple treble, is that the going to go down as the biggest moment in history in Celtic, or should the players involved go down as a legends team, or will this year hamper all that success, Mark, do you think?
No, the quadruple trebles, that's a wonderful achievement. Apart from winning the European Cup, that's the biggest moment in Celtic's history, winning the quadruple treble. I mean, we've won 9 in a row twice. Rangers have done it. Their teams all over the world have won 13 and 14 titles in a row. But you'll never see another team win a quadruple treble in any country in the world.
Yeah, that's the next team I was going to ask you. Would you think that will it ever be achieved again?
No.
Ever?
No.
It'd be a long time anyway. It won't be in our lifetime anyway, you know.
If it ever does.
So it's so unique in this to happen, isn't it? You know?
It'll hurt that we never won the 10. But for me, as the years pass, the quadruple treble will more than make up for no winning the 10.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, like the final was realistic kind of held this season, but it was last year's thing. Did that hamper the celebrations, you think, for Celtic with the fans and stuff like that, with the COVID and stuff like that going around? It really kind of was a low-key final. Do you get what I'm saying? You know?
The same furore if it'd been live on the telly with a full crowd there and played at the right, like a signing off for last season kind of thing. I know what you mean. It was a bit of a damp squib, but it's all what's in the record books. That'll do me, Paul.
Like,
I'll tell you what,
sorry,
Mike,
well,
it was an entertaining final, though, wasn't it? You know, it was very bizarre, as was yesterday's. You know, you could hear just about every shout from the sidelines. But the
Yes.
actual final itself, the Celtic Hearts to clinch the quadruple treble from a neutral's point of view, it must have been a right good final. 3-3 going to penalties on a knife's edge. But yeah, I mean, I agree with Mark. I think the main point in Celtic's history is win the European Cup, but the quadruple treble will never be achieved again. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I think as well, going back to something that I said earlier, it's maybe time to reflect on what an achievement it was. Because,
Yes.
I'm not going to speak about them, but, they were dominant this season, but it just proves, they ended up with one trophy. So it just proves that it's not easy to win cup competitions. It's not easy to win, every domestic competition that you enter. And we did it for 4 seasons in a row.
Are some Celtic fans, Barry, too quick to forget what this team actually achieved? Like Skpe and Calgary, they've been there for the whole ride. Do you know what I mean? Are we too quick to judge? Do you know?
What, Paul? Me personally, I do really appreciate what the club achieved, but at the same time, I think we've spoke about it before, and I don't want to really dwell on it, but it was the manner in which we lost everything this season. It wasn't like we were just edged out towards the end of the league.
We knew it was going to be close on this season, Barry, didn't we? Yes.
Well, we thought it was going to be closer. We thought it was going to be a lot closer, but we didn't. Nobody and we spoke about it before, but nobody foresaw what was going to happen this year. How the wheels would fall off, Celtic's bandwagon. We never saw it. So I think that's why you do get supporters that are sort of very angry and maybe sort of not appreciating. I don't want to say not appreciating, but maybe too quick to forget about the actual quadruple treble achievement because of the way everything's unfurled this season. But like I say, in time, and as every supporter's different, but as time goes on, I think we will actually appreciate it more because it's an incredible achievement. And like Mark says, I don't ever foresee that being equalled in any domestic league, certainly in my lifetime and a lot of other people's lifetime. It's an incredible achievement that we've done. So I think it's maybe time that we sort of appreciated what the players done, and like I say, we'll forget about this season and we'll move on to next season. But the quadruple treble.
See, in 25 years' time, there'll be a 25th anniversary big thing about us winning the quadruple treble.
Absolutely.
That's a history that will carry weight going forward.
And there'll be BBC documentaries and everything like that. This is something that will be remembered. And like I say, it really isn't easy to do what these players have achieved. To win every domestic competition for 4 years on the bounce, it's an incredible achievement. And like I say, it's just slightly been dampened by the way that this season has gone about and unfurled. But like I say, as time goes on, we will appreciate and we will realise what an incredible achievement it was by these players in the club.
Who would be your best player, Mark, that Celtic signed, and why that?
Whatever. Obviously got to be Larson, isn't it? I think everybody. Yeah, I don't think there are many Celtic fans would say anybody else really. We've all our favourite players, but when it comes down to value for money and what they've done,
value for money and everything, wanted,
just an unbelievable deal what we got out of the player for the money we spent on him.
Do you think a player would ever make an impact again at Celtic that Larson made? I know we speak highly of Edouard and Dembele, but they're not at the level as Larson would be, Mark, are they?
I'm no. This people will probably go a bit mental when I say this, but you could maybe say like Scott Sinclair while he was there the first few seasons.
The short time, yes.
Maybe the same kind of impact in the team as like Larson had in the team. Do you know, he was a kind of talisman. He was who we looked to for that wee bit of something special and that. I'm not saying that Scott Sinclair's as good a player as Larson. I'm not saying that.
But he came in, he made an impact.
I'm talking
that's
about
what you said. Yeah, exactly.
The impact he had on the team.
Like they're the kind of signings I think the Celtic fans have been looking for. Like not these loan players that are going to come in and just sit in the bench, Barry. We want players like Sinclair that will come in and make an instant impact, don't we, into the team, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've spoke about it previously, and that's exactly the market we need to be in. We shouldn't. I've said it before. We shouldn't be looking just to sign players that are going to be squad players. That are players that are going to come in and he'll be okay if so and so's injured. He could come in and do a decent job to replace him. That's not how you progress a football club. You progress a football club by going and signing players that are just as good, if not better, than the players that you've actually got in your team, and then they'll be competing with the players that are there. And it's I've said it before, it's only healthy for the squad if you've got top players that are competing for each position to keep each other on their toes. It raises each other's games to a different level. And like I say, for the past few seasons, we've been coming out of transfer windows arguably not any stronger than we're going into them. Peter Lawwell always said that the aim for Celtic Football Club is to come out of each transfer window stronger than when they went into it. And arguably, you could say that that's not been happening, because we've been signing players that are, unheard of, projects, young talent that they're hoping are going to, progress rather than expecting them to progress. It's a gamble. And like I say, we've said it before, we need to be going out and signing ready-made players for the first team, not players that are just going to come in as squad players or cover players. It needs to be top players that are going to be coming in and competing and ready-made to go straight into that first team. And I think that's what has to happen this summer, without a doubt.
Terence Casey is saying Didier Gat for 50k, and Michael Conroy saying Paulo Di Canio. You really can't say anything bad about Didier Gat.
I wasn't a big Gat fan, to be honest.
No,
just he could run fast. That was really all that was all it was with him. I never really liked Gat much as a player. I liked him as like kind of wee cult character he was, and that kind of thing, but I'd never thought he was that good a player, to be honest. No.
Luma Mracic was another player we signed for great value as well, that kind of came into the Celtic team late in his career. Like how was he so late in getting a big move like Mracic? Like the type of player he was is beyond me, isn't it?
I thought somebody would have snapped him up before we'd heard him. I mean, I don't think anybody had heard him. Do you get what I mean?
No.
Unknown to anybody outside probably the people that watched the games. I can't even mind who it was he played for, but it was a master stroke for Dr. Joe, right enough. I mean,
that was, I think, one of his best signings, wasn't it? Dr. Joe, wasn't it?
Definitely. And then, see if you go back, I used to do this with my pals and that. Every Celtic manager, no matter how bad they were, left us with some good players. I mean, John Barnes and Kenny Dalglish, they signed Petrov. I can mind when he made his debut and he was the size of his backside, man. I don't think he'd done any running for about 3 months, I thought, when he came on there that day. But look at the player.
Look at the players now. That we have a new manager coming into now, Mark. Is there any player comfortably you could say that you wanted to keep in the Celtic team at the moment, or would you be bothered if we sold practically every player? Would you be bothered like that if a bid came in for any player and we sold them the way this Celtic team at the moment?
I wouldn't really. I don't think anyone would really upset me too much. Because I'd like to think that if it was going to happen, that A, the player wanted to move on, and B, the money would be the majority of the money would be reinvested in a replacement for them. Would you
be the same, Barry? Would you be bothered really if we sold any of our players this season? You
know what? There is players that I'd like to keep. I need to be honest. Yeah, there is players. I'd want to keep the likes of Stephen Welsh. I'd want to keep, if we can keep him, and if he is happy at the club, I'd want to keep Callum McGregor. I'd want to keep David Turnbull.
Thornhill.
There is players within the squad that I would like to keep. But at the same time, I understand, I wouldn't be I've said it before, I'm a massive McGregor fan, but listen, I realise he's had a poor season just like everybody else. So I wouldn't be devastated if he left, if he is wanting to move. But for me, if he is willing to stay and he wants to be part of, the new regime going forward, yeah, I'd be happy to keep him. There is players.
I still think, Mark, I still think, Barry, like the reason McGregor's had a poor season is because he was covering for Scott Brown most of the time, and he wasn't able to get forward. That he was sitting back all the time to cover Scott Brown. And when Zorro was playing, we saw Cal McGregor moving forward more when Zorro was in the team. You know, would you think that is like that was a main factor in one of the main factors we said, not the main factor, but one of the main factors why he had such a poor season?
Well, I think his game was affected. I don't know what it was. You know, I don't know like if there was something underlying or, you know, if it was down to the system they were playing. But we know Callum McGregor. We know his attributes. We know that he's great on the ball. He can pick passes. He can drive forward. He can score goals. And we didn't really see any of that at all. We didn't see any of that at all last season. But, you know, I remember, going off on a slight tangent, I remember a game. It was Celtic versus Hibs. And it started off with Scott Brown and Callum McGregor as the sort of sitting two. It was the old 4-2-3-1. And Brown went off really early injured with a calf injury. And what they did was they shifted Christie in beside McGregor. And I can't remember Celtic playing a brand of football that they did that day since. They were absolutely sensational that day against Hibs. I think it finished 4-2 Celtic. But see, McGregor and Christie, and that's the two of them, they were unbelievable. They were so dynamic. They were getting on the ball, driving forward, breaking up Hibs whenever they got possession. But like I say, we've just never seen that. We've never seen that for him for this season. But listen, we know he's a good player. We know he's got it in him. So like I say, if he's willing to stay and he's wanting to be part of, you know, the new manager's regime and system going forward, I'd be all for it. I don't think you should rip up the whole copybook and start again. We know that there's going to be multiple players leaving this season. We know that there's players that don't want to be there. There's players that have already gone back to their clubs who have been on loan, and players who maybe just won't, you know, have their contracts renewed, i.e. Griffiths. You know, we don't know his situation. So there's going to be a multitude of players leaving the club. There's going to be a multitude of players coming in. But, you know, I'd be reluctant to lose somebody of the quality of McGregor and Turnbull, and like I say, Stephen Welsh, another one that I'd like to see coming in. Remaining within the squad. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting summer, like we've said before. There's going to be a lot of comings and goings, and we'll just have to see what happens. Hopefully,
so looking at
like
some,
Mark said earlier, we're going to get an announcement very, very soon.
So we're looking at this Celtic team, and there's been a few flops in this team this season. Like, but Celtic had their fair few of shocking and flop signings over the last couple of years. We have Derek Bigeta, excuse my pronunciation again, from Ajax for $3 million in 2018. Ifiares from Mexico Pumas, $3 million in 2010. Iburik Karosi for $2.8 million from Krasnodar for 2014. Yuri Yarashek was $2 million from Chelsea in 2006. We had Nieder Sifty from Dundee United for $1.5 million. We can't forget Dewey from. I think he only played one game. He only played one game. Was in the cup match, that defender, and he was gone after that.
But against,
that's right, against
Clyde.
Clyde, yeah. Was it one game he played? I think was it.
That's the only one I can, off the top of my head. It's the only one I can remember him playing.
It was one too many in the end, wasn't it? It was a game too many. That was the last time he played. He played against that game against Clyde, and he was never seen again in a Celtic jersey.
Was it Strachan? What was the manager then? I think was it Strachan? Was it?
Yeah, it was, and that was Roy Keane's debut.
Roy Keane's debut, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, but I mean, there was talk as well. Like at the time, you know, Celtic. I can't remember if he was still there at the time, but they had Nakamura, you know, who was a right good player. You know, this is the other side of it. And it was commercial. It was commercial. And this was another one, wasn't it? Dewey was the Chinese version. He was this young up-and-coming Chinese defender. And I think Celtic saw an opportunity, or Peter Loyal, or somebody saw an opportunity there. Listen, this kid's going to be a star of the future. And if we can get ourselves in the Chinese market the way we have done the Japanese market, this could be a real money spinner. Well, unfortunately, it just didn't work out that way.
I would have loved to see what Roy Keane said to him after the match. I said, and that's probably what Roy Keane said to him. Is the reason we probably haven't seen him anymore, because he ran after Roy Keane probably gave out to him. I said.
That was when Roy Keane went on the bus and Hartson was sitting eating a bag of Monster Munch, wasn't it?
He was, yeah, and he didn't,
That's right.
Book, he said in his book about
That's right.
that.
That's right.
couldn't come to terms with it. So he couldn't, like, how professional Manchester United was. And then he's coming in. There's John Hart and opening a pack of Munster Munch in the bus. Like, I could just picture Keane's
Well,
face.
see, that's a thing, though. You know, and I know, I know this is against 90%, 95%. But it's when people speak about Roy Keane, you know, Celtic manager, no. However, Roy Keane would bring a certain level of professional. I'm not saying I want him to be the manager, but he wouldn't have stood for that. You know, things like that. He mentioned it in his book, like you say, Mark. You know, a player eating a packet of crisps. He just found that disgusting. That was the standards that he had. Players shouldn't be doing that. They should be looking after their bodies. He had this certain standard, and that's what, you know, earlier in the season, I was sort of, when his name was getting mentioned and etc., I was thinking to myself, you know, he wouldn't stand for this. He wouldn't stand for I'm going off on a tangent here, I know, guys, but he wouldn't
even
stand
Ronnie
for the level
Doyle
of
wouldn't have stand for it.
performances.
Didn't stand for. You know, when Ronnie Doyle
No.
came in, like he didn't stand for the standards that Celtic were at that time, and then like he took over from Neil Lennon, like so. We saw the standards drop again when Neil Lennon came in, like so. It's obviously like a more relaxed approach by Lennon rather than the likes of Roy Keane and Ronnie Doyle when they saw Celtic, you know, and even Brendan Rodgers, you know, like you need to have a high standard within your club so everyone follows that and no one is slacking about, Barry, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, but that's not something that's difficult to introduce, Paul. That's for me. That's a minimum standard. You should be at the utmost professional. You're professional footballers, a professional club, the top club in Scotland, you know, a highly regarded club in Europe. You need to have these standards there, and it's disappointing that those clearly weren't there under Neil Lennon. Like I say, I don't want to bash the guy, I don't want to slag him off too much, but I don't think there's any doubt that the standards dropped. The professional standards dropped when Neil Lennon took over. Brendan Rodgers set the bar, and the bar was high under Brendan Rodgers.
But even I was bringing up, like, Barry, in last podcast was like our sports science fellow is Tim Williamson, and like he was dropped under Ronnie Doyle, he was dropped under Brendan Rodgers, and then Neil Lennon comes in and he brings him in from the cloud. Like, other managers saw that this fella wasn't up to the sports science job. Do you know what I mean? And then Lennon then brings him back into the floor. Like, so there's another bad decision you could see behind the scenes from Neil Lennon, you know?
Yeah, you know what? I think there was a number of bad decisions, a number of poor decisions, but and we've paid the price for it. We've suffered the consequences for it. So, you know, let's hope that the new manager comes in, has a completely different sort of attitude and view on professional standards, and we could get back to the way we were previously under previous managers.
So we have another one was Marc-Antoine Fortuné. We had Amido Balde, and number one on top of the list that I looked at was Rafael Shidis. 4.5 million we paid for him. That was under John Barnes' era, didn't we? We brought him, the Brazilian one.
Aye, that was off.
Is he?
You know what? I don't even know what to say about that.
Is he the worst signing saw in Celtic's history? To think.
With my own eyes, it was either Big Raphael Shite or Martin Hayes. You'll maybe no mind of him. We signed him for, I think it was Arsenal, for £650,000. And then we found out that Arsenal were giving him a free transfer. Arsenal planning a free transfer, and Billy McNeil went in and paid £650,000 for him. And he made his debut, I'm sure it was against Aberdeen. Oh, it was terrible.
Did you ever hear the story from Harry Redknapp when he signed this player from South America, and he heard great reports about this player, but the fella never played a game of football in his life, and I think he said he was with Portsmouth at the time, and he went away and he signed him, and it was an agent trying to make money for himself, and they did this big huge hype off him, had him all on the local papers, presented to the fans.
I can mind when Graham Souness was managing somebody down in England, he get conned into signing a player because he thought he was Georgie Weah's cousin. And the guy's not any day with Georgie Weah, and I don't think he was even a professional football player, but I'm sure Souness signed him for somebody, aye.
and they didn't kick a ball. And they came onto the pitch. Like Harry Redknapp was saying, like he substituted him after about 15 minutes because he said he knew that he couldn't kick a ball. So imagine that, like that.
It's funny because when you sent the sort of memo through when it talked about poor Celtic signings, it, possibly yourself as well, Mark, it took me back to the sort of early 90s era. And we were when we were bringing boys in like Lee Martin and Wayne Biggins. There's another Wayne Biggins and Carl Muggleton in the goal, and it took me back to then. But there's been a number over the years. But I think the reason it took me back to that time was we had a team full of them. Unfortunately, we had more poor signings than we did good ones. But going on the Raphael Shite, I remember again when you go on about conspiracies. I remember when we signed Raphael Shite, probably after the event, there was a rumour going about that the Brazil manager at the time was a guy called Vanderlei Luxemburgo. And there was a rumour going about that he was capping players.
That was true. That was 100% true.
Well, it would certainly fit. He was capping players to get the transfer fees risen, and we were duped into it and went and signed this guy for 5.5 million or something, and he got a cut of that fee.
Helped with work permits if they had caps and things like that. That's 100%.
Yeah, exactly.
I think he went on quarter stuff like that, Barry.
Yeah. What happened with that?
That certainly fitted in with. No, so the Brazilian manager at the time was a guy called Vanderlei Luxemburgo, and as I was saying, the rumour was that, or Mark says it might have been proved true, he was capping players in Brazil. He was giving them caps, but it was all a conspiracy. He was capping them, which would get their transfer value, because this is a Brazilian international centre-half, a Brazilian national fielder, and they would get moves to Europe, and this guy would get a cut of the transfer fee. And the reason, obviously, as well, because they were getting capped, it would enhance their chances of gaining a work permit into the UK and into Europe. So, that and we didn't know at the time, but obviously after the event, Raphael Shite was one of these players that was capped by Luxemburgo, and we were duped into paying 5.5 million for him, and this guy would have got a cut of that fee.
You've got to blame Kenny Dalglish for that. I mean, Kenny Dalglish was there. He was basically the director of football. No, he should have known. Unless he got a wee bung off it as well.
Like
with all that was involved, it's one of the strangest transfers. It's up there with the Boom song going to Newcastle transfer, that there's just something totally murky all about it.
He's a strange one. I never heard that now, to be honest. So that's a good one to see. Like, it's just a lot of money for an unknown player. Like, isn't there 4.5 million?
Without a doubt. I think it was Grêmio. I think that was his team in Brazil. But yeah, I mean, it would have been, I don't know, was it our record transfer at the time? I think it probably would have been.
Yes, it would have been. It was John Bowles' record.
That was before the O'Neill era, when he bought Sutton and Hartson for 6 million. So that would have been a record signing. But like you say, Matt, you would have thought you would have done it.
There's another bummer of a signing.
Bukovic was signed for 3.8.
Oh, was he? I thought he was a bit more. And I thought he was over 5.
So did I. Thought it was about 5 3/4.
Jesus.
But he came with a bit of reputation, though. He'd done decent for West Ham, and you kind of thought, that's a decent signing, by the way. But obviously, like what happens with a number of signings, some things don't work out that way.
Do you remember the kick Hartson?
Oh, John Hartson.
In the training session there, and that was all over YouTube at the time. Remember that? Jesus.
And then Hartson came in and took his number, didn't he? Because Berkovic was still at the club when Hartson came to Celtic, and Hartson ended up taking Berkovic's number 10 shirt.
Jesus Christ. I said there was no love lost there between the two of them. I said when Hartson came in there. Yeah, is there anyone else, like this list was from previous players? Like, is there anyone in the last decade that you would classify as a flop for Celtic, Mark, that would go onto this list?
Oh, I think we've had plenty of them, Paul. Gazzy Richards. Baldy was that Baldy that was he at about the same time? Bangura.
You know what? It always seems to be the strikers. That's who I was thinking. Mo Bangura, and then you had guys like that. Was it Miku and Lasad? We always seem to get duff strikers. They brought in a boy Pavel Brocek, Polish striker. They brought in on loan. always seemed to be in the striking department that we really struggled with our flop signings. There's been a number of them. And unfortunately, you could probably put the likes of Klamala in that bracket as well. I know, Paul, you said the guy's a good player, but it's not worked out for him at the club. But for some reason,
exactly.
it's always a striking department we seem to have a real struggle with.
That Benyu, that Benyu that Rodgers signed as well.
Benyu, the fella from Ipswich. Yes.
Benyu, yeah.
But is that due to the fact that Barry, like that we're looking at players maybe actually very too young to come into Celtic? Do we have to change where our scouting system looks at players, like up the age of these players we're signing?
Well, I don't know if it's a case of age, Paul, but it potentially goes back to what we spoke about a few minutes ago. That these guys were, sort of projects, if you like. These were young guys that were playing in a lesser league that were performing at a certain level, but it doesn't always guarantee that they're going to be successful coming to Celtic or coming to Scotland. I think it goes back to we maybe need to be looking at a market whereby the players are ready made to come into the first team, like I said before. But there's no doubt. I mean, we've spent fortunes. The players that you've just rattled off there.
There's big money, like there's big money, like
yes. Whereas if you, for example, take Bangura, Amido Balde, and another one of your strikers, between that you're probably looking at 7 or 8 million. Now, for me, that money would have been better invested, maybe bringing in one,
exactly
6-7 million. Now, I know you're not guaranteed, but I think, the higher a quality player you're looking at, the more likely they are to be a success. Whereas if you're
it's going back to what happened this season, Barry, with Tony, isn't this? We could have got Tony for maybe 8 million, and we went away and we signed a Yessi and Camilla for about nearly the same price.
Well, see, the thing is with Tony, so this is my understanding anyway. I might be proved wrong here, or somebody might be able to correct me, but my understanding was Ajeti was coming in anyway. Celtic were signing Ajeti. Tony was going to be the potential ready-made replacement for Edward. So it would have been, would have the both of them.
You said that, Mark, yeah.
That's what I think it is.
Yeah, so that was my understanding, that Tony was going to be the ready-made replacement for. So I don't think it was a toss-up of, we're not going to sign Tony, we're going to go with Ajeti instead. I think they were both on the books or in the plans for the future. But for whatever reason, we decided that we weren't going to fork out the money for Tony. Now, I seen a couple of posters on the forum yesterday, kind of giving him a bit of a hard time. I watched the game yesterday. I actually thought he was good. I actually thought I don't know if anybody saw the Brentford and Bournemouth game yesterday, but I was quite impressed with Tony. He looks like he's got a right good attitude. He scored a good penalty, but I think he missed a couple of chances. But for me, he was lively. He was, always moving in the box. Maybe something we've been missing from Eddie this year. But for me, it's another one that's got away. And my opinion is that guy will go for big money again. Whether he gets Brentford into the Premier League or if he doesn't, I'd imagine there'll be a good few Premier League teams sniffing about him, bringing him in this summer.
Exactly.
But it's another one that's got away from our point of view.
Mark, the biggest one, and we spoke about with Barry as well, was the way we signed it. Yes, that we were supposed to come in loan first, and then we signed in for 5.5 million. That was the strangest deal by Celtic in a long time, wasn't it?
Really strange. We're going about the good things that Peter Lowell's done and that. I've got to wonder why Peter Lowell changed his mind so quick over that for a player that
someone really had to turn him there for that, because it's not something that Law is known to do. Like Law would like to get a player on loan first and see what he's like, didn't he? That was the kind of way Law kind of looked at things, wasn't it?
Well, the cheapest way usually be Lowell, wouldn't it? And it was strange. We spoke about it in the last podcast. The player, he'd hardly played a game for West Ham, and obviously, I don't imagine Davy Moyes would slag a player he's trying to get out the door off, but obviously Neil Lennon came out and said that he wanted him as a player, but surely he knew the rumours about what his attitude was like, etc. Then for Lowell to go to change, it was in a matter of days that it went for that he was coming in loan to that we were buying him. It was an an odd one altogether for me, that.
Speaking of David Moyes getting West Ham into the Europa League this season, he's really turned his career around, hasn't he? David Moyes, considering since he left Manchester United, he kind of really dropped us. He's really have to make stake in his name again, hasn't he? David Moyes, Mark, hasn't he?
I've said it before. I wouldn't have minded Davy Moyes as Celtic manager. And well, Davy Moyes was expecting a phone call for Dermot. I've said it before. Dermot
Mm-hmm.
he was waiting a phone call for Dermot Desmond after the cup final, and they chose to appoint Neil Lennon. And we wouldn't be sitting in this position where they knew if they'd appointed Davy Moyes that night. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
Mm-hmm. Look, going by managers, we go on, sorry, bye, go on.
No, I was just about to say I wholeheartedly agree. Like David Moyes at the time, he made it clear. He was in the press. He was on Sky. He made it clear that he was interested in the Celtic job, and I was absolutely 100% certain that he was going to be the new manager after Lennon, because I think,
especially when there was kind of contact there as well before, there was interest in David Moyes before as well, Barry, wasn't there?
The thing was as well, Paul, though, when Neil Lennon came in and took over, and he kind of steadied the ship, but at the same time, we stumbled our way to the title that year.
Yes.
You know, I think we beat Rangers 2-1 when Jamesy Forrest got the winner, and I think that took us 13 points clear of them, which basically, however, the games that followed that, I think we drew 0-0 at home Aberdeen, we drew 0-0 at home at Livingston. We started to
We were lucky, they crumbled again, really, Barry, weren't we?
Exactly, and then again in the final, you know, we were 1-0 down to Hearts, and, you know, we got a penalty, and then a bad bit of defending lets Edward in. So for me, it wasn't like Neil Lennon came in and he absolutely smashed it. You know, won every game, won convincingly. You know, he didn't do that. So for me, I thought, no, there's no way he'll get appointed. It will be Moyes. And I was quite excited at the thought of Moyes coming in, because whilst I know a lot of fans that aren't big Moyes fans, I think he's quite negative, he's quite defensive. That's okay. You know, everybody's entitled to their opinion. I was looking on the other side. You know, this is a guy that managed Everton for a number of years, had a great deal of success there. Okay, it didn't work out at Man United, but at the same time, Sir Alex Ferguson cherry-picked David Moyes. Sir Alex Ferguson,
but a lot of players, ex-players, Barry, have came out and said, sorry, but a lot of ex-players have came out from Manchester, likes of Rio Fora and Paul Scholes. They have said, like, he wasn't given the chance because he came into Manchester United at the wrong time, and automatically he was compared to Alex Ferguson. Do you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was big. You know? It was big shoes to fill, wasn't it? So unless he had instant success, I mean, you know, exactly. Alex Ferguson, he was there for, I don't know, 20, 30 years, I can't remember, but, you know, unless he had instant success, it was going to be a struggle, you know, and he never got given time. But for me, like I say, just because it didn't work out, it doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad manager. You know, I think some supporters and critics are quite quick to criticise and say they're no good enough.
Look at some of the managers the big teams in England have chewed up and spat out. Mourinho at Man United, Van Gaal at Man United. Do you know that Emery, the guy that Arsenal brought in the shorty? It's just we spoke about it before. What Eddie Howe's choice is he want to play musical chairs in the Premiership for team for the next 8-10 years, or does he want to come to a club where he's going to be challenging, winning trophies, playing in Europe, etc.? But the English league, it's what we speak about before. It's just, and Davy Moyes has proven that if with the right job and the right backing, you can make these so-called weird teams challenge for push into the top 6 and that down there. Davy Moyes is a great manager. I don't care what anybody says. You're going about his style of football and that, but he gets results. That's the first and foremost thing that we need. Going to get results.
I wholeheartedly agree, Mary. I'm a big Davy Moyes fan, and I think he's done a fantastic job. You know, West Ham were floating around relegation, just above the relegation this time last year, and 12 months down the line, they're now in the Europa League, and you know they were ever so slightly unfortunate to not possibly be in the Champions League. They just kind of fell away the last sort of 3 or 4 results. But they were up there challenging for a Champions League spot, and from
considering
last,
where
12 months ago
West
to
Ham
be
fans were in the stadium, Barry, considering like it wasn't so long ago we had West Ham supporters in the stadium showing stuff at the chairman. Remember that? Not so long ago, they were inside the stadium. They started hauling stuff at the chairman's box and everything. So he has steadied the ship there, and as Mark said, like that, he's experienced and everything, like So we're moving on, like we're going from coincidence that we were talking about managers there. We're going on to Celtic's worst managers in history, and I have Liam Brady, John Hartson, Tony Mowbray, and Lou McCarry. Would they be the biggest flops, do you think, in Celtic managers, Mark?
Who was the second one?
John Barnes.
Oh, I thought you said John Hartson. I don't think Liam Celtic played decent enough football under Liam Brady.
Hmm.
So I mean, it was just again when we're talking about rubbish signings we've made, we thought back to the kind of times, the Liam Brady, Lou McCarry times and that. The worst ever manager.
Would Tony Mowbray fall into that?
No, I wouldn't put him in it either. Just I don't think he was here long enough to say that he would be there like one of the worst. I'd go for Lou McCarry, to be honest.
Barry?
That would be mine. Lou McCarry would be mine. I think as well, it was a time where, as a club, we were struggling. We were in a bad spot back in the early 90s, and it just so happens it went hand in hand with, Rangers dominating and Rangers spending power and everything like that. And, we touched on it earlier that the signings that we were making back then were, bang average, poor players from England and some from Scottish League as well, whereas Rangers were going and getting some sort of top players from the English leagues and internationalists. So I think that went hand in hand, and as a result, it was a bad time for Celtic. And so for me, it would probably be Lou McCarry that I would pick as our biggest flop as a manager, just because we were finishing mid-table sometimes. I think sometimes we were fourth and fifth in the league, behind your Aberdeens, your Hibs, your Hearts. So it was a bad time. It was a bad time for Celtic back in the early 90s, and it culminated in, like I say, finishing way down the leagues, not even putting in any kind of challenge to sort of, well, not only Rangers, but the 2 or 3 teams that were above us at the time as well. So, yeah, I mean, I couldn't disagree with that. I think if I was to pick one of our biggest flops as a manager, I would have to go for McCarry.
It's controversial. Would you think some Celtic supporters, Mark, will throw Neil Lennon into that list, considering how bad we were this season?
No, I don't think that. I don't think that would be fair on Neil Lennon. He's
I mean,
and you know that, but I wouldn't put Neil Lennon in. Excuse me, anywhere near a Celtic's worst manager. No.
I mean, the guy's won, was it 5 or 6 titles he's won? You can't put him as our worst manager. As a manager, he's won 5. I can't remember if it's 5 or 6. Anyway, he's won those Premier League titles. He's managed us in Champions League victories. He's got us to, the knockout stages.
But there are some fans out there, Mark, that would do it. Like, wouldn't there?
There will be the now. Get a year or 18 months, and Neil Lennon will be getting misty-eyed when Celtic Twitter put out his birthday and that.
Exactly.
Will be forgot about. And so,
I think as well,
rightly so, it should be forgotten, but you can't hold it against one man. And
yes.
If it is going to be the one man, I keep saying it should be Peter Lowell, because it was him that appointed Lennon. Because Lennon didn't get into this season saying, I'm going to mess this up. We know that. We know Lennon would be hurting as much as any. So, it's bad mouth him and diss him off anymore. He came and went, he tried his best, and it just wasn't good enough.
I've said that before on a previous podcast as well. I mean, Neil Lennon's gone through a hell of a lot for this football club. Some of the stuff that he's had to put up with is nothing short of disgusting and disgraceful. Yet he never once thought about walking away. He wanted to continue. So I think as well, a lot of the fans, maybe the younger generation of fans, they'll maybe not remember your early 90s, your Lou McCarrys and that. So they'll be comparing it to the successful managers. And yeah, no, I certainly wouldn't put Neil Lennon anyway. Actually, what I'd go as far to say is he'd be at the opposite end. Neil Lennon would be up there with some of our most successful managers. You look at what
I keep going on about having the statues up the Celtic way and that, Barry, of who it should be, the new and who it should be as the years go by, and see in 50 years' time in that, there should be a statue of Neil Lennon outside Celtic Park, along with like Scott Brown. Do you know what I mean? That's what he's done as a player, what he's done as a manager. Definitely. The years will be kinder to Lennon than
exactly.
people feel they know.
And you know what? There'll not be as many players, in the future that have won as many titles and trophies. I know Scott Brown's won 22 titles as a Celtic player. But Neil Lennon as a Celtic player and manager, I'm sure it's 10 titles. I think he won 5 as a player, 5 as a manager.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not going to be many, players and managers that has been successful as Neil Lennon. And like I say, rightly so, he'll be regarded as a legend. We just need to forget about what's happened this season. One bad season doesn't make a legacy.
Do you think, Mark, going by what Barry was saying, like the things that Neil Lennon had to put up in Scottish football between rival fans and abuse he got and stuff like that, do you think that will happen to the next manager, Eddie Howe, coming in? And how would he react to it? Or would it be different because he'd be a British manager coming in?
I don't think any manager coming in would face the kind of stuff that Lennon did over the years. But as I've said before, and that was one of the things I said that I wasn't too sure about with Eddie Howe, is coming to Glasgow, managing Celtic. Half the country hates you, half the country loves you. It's just, I've said that before about how I don't know how he would react to that kind of living in the goldfish bowl of Glasgow and the intensity of it all. I don't think he'll be getting that kind of abuse in the street and getting attacked to the side of parks and things sent through the post, that kind of level of hatred, but he'll come across a level of hatred that he's never experienced before. I mean, I don't even know who's Bournemouth's biggest rival. Portsmouth or something like that. It's not exactly.
Barry, I just got a screenshot there from Michael, who's playing FIFA, and he has Dundee team up from your time, and you're actually on the FIFA Dundee team on his computer. Barry Forbes.
That was a right good team. That playing. Tell Mikey to start me. The manager never used to do that very often, so tell Mikey to give me a start.
But there was some good players in that team, wasn't there? I'm just looking at it there now. There's.
Oh yeah, I mean, that was Dundee's most successful team of the last 50 years. I was lucky enough to be part of the squad that got to the Scottish Cup final back in 2003, and Dundee, they've not been there since. And the way they're going, I wish them all the best. But the way they're going just now, I'd love to see them back up, get a victory against Kilmarnock. But I don't know if they'll be sort of competing in cup finals again. But yeah, it was a right good team back then.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to move on, and we're going to look. They're doing well, so we decided to talk about tonight is the Celtic women's team, and they beat Rangers today 2-0. They're pushing for the Champions League spot, and they're pushing for the championship. And you have to say well done to Fran Alonso and the girls, Mark, don't you, for their success in the women's league so far this season?
Aye.
I know you're not a big fan of the women's football, but it's about the only team we have good to cheer about this season.
You've got to fair play to them. If they've won the league, they've done what they've set out today. They've done better than the men's team has. So, well done to them. But,
so the reason I brought it up is because I want to talk about Fran Alonso. Now, a lot of people might know this, but looking at his coaching career, he's coached some top level clubs with top level managers. He worked as Everton's assistant first team coach under Ronald Koeman. He was Lucy Pochettino's technical coach at Southampton, and he's big into tactics. He's big into the style of play that Celtic have in the future. He recently spoke to Dominic McKay, he said, about the progress of the women's team and the future for the team. And Dominic McKay also spoken about the potential progress of the men's first team football. Considering the managers he worked with and stuff like that, no, I'm not saying manager, but could you see him maybe stepping up to the first team in years to come, Mark, the way he has been progressing here, because he's worked with some good coaches?
What about him taking over for like Gavin Stratton?
Mm-hmm.
Kinda. I mean, that's
the role he had as for Mauricio Pochettino. That's the role he had. He was his technical.
That's a good CV he's got there, Paul. I didn't know that, to be honest with you. But what he's doing, doesn't matter if it's women's football, kids football, men's football. What he's doing just covers football in general. So I don't see how we couldn't make a step up.
He said, like,
team.
when Lawler approached him that he couldn't say no to Celtic and it would be his dream job to like everyone says it's their dream job, but it was a step for him to step away from being the assistant and being the technical director to being his own man into managing the team. Like that's basically what he wants to do, and this is his way of stepping up into management of a team. But like he's worked with some great coaches, Koeman and Pochettino, and they've regarded him highly. These two lads, Koeman and Pochettino.
I've been dreading this subject. I really have, because I just can't take to women's football. I'm really sorry. I hope that doesn't. I hope it doesn't.
No, but I'm stepping away from the football. I'm stepping away from the women's football. But
well, something, Paul. I watched the game today, and it was Celtic won 2-1. Okay, and they could not string two passes together. I don't know if any of the posters watched it. Please feel free to comment on it, guys. I watched 90 minutes because this is me doing my homework for this podcast. I thought I better watch the game if we're going to be speaking about it. And I have no idea how Celtic managed to win it. It was like the cup final. It was like the League Cup final of the men's of 2 seasons ago when Rangers just absolutely battered with. And we've somehow managed to score 2 goals and win the game. Credit to them, fair play, but I watched them against Glasgow City about a month ago. I don't know, they can't pass the ball. They literally cannot string 3-4 passes together. And I watched some of the... I'm sorry if this is kind of going off here. I watched some of the English ladies as well, and they're not much better. I just can't take it. So to put Fran Alonso, to talk about him in the men's side of it, I don't want to see it. I'm sorry, Fran. I hope if you listen to the podcast, it's not for me. If you want to go and sort of cut your teeth in men's football and manage a team there and produce something there, but for me, I know you're not even allowed to say that these days, but I need to be honest. I need to give my opinion, and my opinion is female football. Yeah, mate.
No, I totally agree with you. I can't take to women's football at all, but see if he hadn't been manager of a women's team and then look at his CV, who he's worked under, would you still say the same, that he wasn't good enough to be part of the backroom staff?
Backroom staff may be different. I'm not, I certainly wouldn't have put him.
I'm not talking about him getting a manager's job or anything like that. I'm saying, see, like maybe what Gavin Stratton's doing, and then Paul says that's what he did for Pacino. So maybe that.
Well, if that's the case, again, Mark, we've kind of spoke about it before. For example, if Eddie Howe wanted to go and get Fran Alonso in based on what he's done under Koeman, I'd have no problem with that. I'd want Eddie Howe to pick his backroom staff.
I just said I brought it up because he said he had a meeting with Dominic McKay. They talked about the future of women's football, and he said they also talked about the future plans for the first team. And I just found that a bit strange. That why would the women's coach be talking about the men's first team to the chairman? Do they have some plan for him to step into maybe the manager the under 16s or the under 18 teams or the core teams? Or do Celtic have a plan for him that way?
I would find it strange if he was talking about the actual male first team as opposed to the female first team. I don't really understand why Fran Alonso would have any sort of input in that. Because it's completely different entities. The male team and the female team are completely different. I can't understand. Fran Alonso will not have any.
On you go, Barry.
No, I'll let you go, Mark. I was just a way to say it. I can't. It's because they're completely different.
If he's met Dominic McKay to speak about the future of the women's team in Celtic, that's Dominic McKay doing his job.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, so even if he's talking to a guy about the women's side, but he's talking to a football player, so why not just ask him his opinion on what the men's team or what this or that is? I don't. It's just a conversation between two men that are going to be working close together.
Maybe Fran Alonso thought he was coming in taking the men's job when he first took over Celtic, considering how big this women team is at Celtic.
I'll tell you what, though, the women have got a couple of decent centre halves. I'll tell you that right now. Watching that game today, the centre halves were decent.
Look,
Let me
I'm
take
gonna
a couple of tips from Fran Alonso on how to defend set pieces.
before we lose subscribers there, I'm going to move on from that subject, and
Oh, I know,
we
yeah.
we won't bring
Apologies.
up that topic anymore. So in the last week, it's been reported that Aston Villa have made a bid for David Turn in the region of 7 million. Is it too soon for Celtic, do you think, Barry, to accept this offer? And is he key to next season's rebuild, David Turnbull?
Oh, without a doubt. I wouldn't be looking to sell Turnbull whatsoever. I said earlier that, he'd be one of the players that I'd want to keep and certainly build my team around. He's had a good season in what's been a very poor Celtic side.
And he hasn't even played a full season either.
No, he's not. He came in sort of 2 or 3 months into the season. And, if we can bring in players in around him that are going to sort of, take the load off of him, because he had to carry the team for large parts of the season. I mean, I've seen some of the guys on the posts yesterday, the forums, and, talking about, 7 million, how it's, the cheap. And I can't understand it, but at the same time, it's also, doubling the investment that we put into it, at the start of this season. We bought him for 3.5 million, and we've got teams that are looking at 7. Now, I'm not suggesting we sell him for 7 at all. I wouldn't want to do that. I don't want to sell him for any money at this moment in time. Like I say, this is a player that we should be building our team around. But at the same time, I don't think 7 million is maybe miserly as what maybe other people think it is. I think
it just shows like how good of a player he can actually come if he stays with us for another 3 seasons, doesn't it, Barry? What he can.
Oh, yeah. I mean, without a doubt, like I say, what we need to do is we need to get good players in and around him, because if we got players that can help him out, and like I say, that last season, we didn't really have any players that were performing. It was only really your sort of Sorrow and Turnbull. Maybe Stephen Welsh as well. They were probably only the 3 that you would say, they're putting in some decent performances. So if he's managed to pull out these performances when all in around him haven't been doing much, if we can get a team together that are going to be producing week in, week out, David Turnbull is going to be a key part of that for me. And I wouldn't be.
And even shows as well
for any
getting caught up to the Scottish European Championships. How other managers rate him as a player.
Oh, absolutely. You know what? Congratulations to him, and I think he deserves that call up. I think he really does it, and you know what? He can potentially, go into the Euros this year, and hopefully he does get some game time, because he is a cracking player, David Turnbull.
Talking about the Euros, Barry, would you think it would have benefited maybe James Forrest? I know it's everyone's dream, and Scotland don't qualify for many big tournaments. I hope you don't mind me saying that, but. Would you be forward for him to miss out on this, considering he's been out for the whole of this season, James Forrest?
No, it doesn't really make a difference for me. He's not played much game time, so to get him some international games at a major tournament, I think it could potentially be a good thing. I wouldn't be overly keen on him missing out.
Mark, your thoughts on the Turnbull? Sorry.
Oh, see what we were saying earlier on when you asked if there's any, I'd be upset about anybody leaving. I thought you meant somebody like somebody would really have been. Oh, I wish when they sold him or that. I didn't. When I said,
I think Turnbull would fall into that, wouldn't he?
No, that's what I was going to say. I was just players that I'd say no. There's none of them, and I stick by that. There's none of them that I would really be upset with leaving. I mean, I want them to stay. I want Turnbull to stay. I even want Iron that to stay. And Turnbull is one of the players we should be building the team round a bit. So 7 million, but Barry says it's a decent profit for a guy that's done okay for us so far. And again, what's he want to do? What if Turnbull's looking to move on?
Yeah, do you think like maybe if we convinced him to stay, Mark, would that maybe turn his head like the want to ways this season? That we rejected a bid. Like, we don't know if this bid was actually being made, but if it was and Celtic rejected, do you think that would turn his head like the players this season, like Sir Christie and stuff?
No, I don't think so. And
you know what? I don't.
The turning their head stuff. See, that's really weird when you think about it, because it's just certain players just seem to have that kind of attitude, whereas other players, if you don't if you've not got an agreement with your club to sell you, they don't need to sell you. We know the kind of moves that goes on behind the scenes and how they make promises, etc. and that. So even if this is only in the paper, if Turnbull wants to leave Celtic, him or his agent can just go and say, look, we're looking for a move. We don't know if this is true, but if Aston Villa or whoever it is are willing to buy us and you can agree a price, we want it. But unless I just really ignore kind of stuff like that about turning their heads and stuff like that. It's just the same as us. It's only stuff in papers. Turnbull,
I don't know.
Aston Villa are interested in him. That's, you know what I mean? Whether it's paper talk or not, he'll know for definite whether it's true or not.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw the documentary that Turnbull did when he was at Motherwell about the failed move to Celtic and his injury and that. But he seems like a proper level-headed guy.
He was deeply upset that that move broke down, Barry. Do you know, he was deeply upset that that move broke down.
At the same time, Paul, he never at any point pushed for it. He never at any. He just let I think it was Norwich and Celtic at the time. He just sort of sat back and he wasn't, look, this is where I want to go, or he wasn't at the chairman's door saying, I'm wanting this move to Celtic pushed through, I'm wanting to accept this bid. He just sort of sat back and let nature take its course. And, even when he's injury, I think they gave him another contract, so he signed the other contract. He didn't think to himself, well, you know what, even though I'm going to be injured for a year, that's another year of my contract run down, therefore, I'm closer to leaving. So I don't think, he'll have his head turned. I think he'll realise, he's a young player at a really big club. He's going to have years of development yet. And you know what? If he keeps progressing, he'll get his move if that's what he wants. But I don't think at this stage he'll have his head turned or, he'll be trying to force a move out the door. I don't think he's like that. I don't think that's his character. I think he'll realise that, like I say, he's a young player that's kind of just broken into the first team. He'll want to establish himself and get a right good few games under his belt, a couple of seasons or whatever, and like I say, progressing each year, each season, and getting to the international fold, become a regular in there, and then, like I say, further down the line, if he keeps on going the way he's going, he will get a big move. But now's not the time, in my opinion.
Especially when there's no manager in place, like you can't see the Celtic board making these decisions when the new manager hasn't even spoken at all and see how he feels, or does he? You can't see Celtic accepting this offer, Mark, without a manager. So you couldn't, No,
I don't even think it would get to a manager's decision if it would. But I don't think £7 million would. As I said, and as Barry said, it's a fair price for double your player, but as an opening bid, it would be okay. But I think it would need to take a bit more than that. You're talking maybe 10 million mark for Celtic to even approach Turnbull and say, look, we've got serious interest for down south or whatever. I think it's just paper talk, Paul. I wouldn't really pay much attention.
Oh yeah, that's why I brought it up. Yeah,
talk about it obviously, but I don't really pay much attention to it. It's like that's but probably you're going about next. It's like that story with Encham's contract.
But I looked into that, all right, and there's two players that came up in something like Encham's contract was Johnny Hayes and Joseph Sminovich, right? When they signed their last contract, there was some clause put in that Celtic could terminate the contract in the last year, all right, like they did with Sminovich and Johnny Hayes last season, that if they weren't happy with their appearances or their age fell into it, or if their injuries fell into it, and so Celtic had the choice to terminate the contract and not having to pay out the player. And this same clause, supposedly McCoy has noticed that this clause was put into Encham's contract, and that this is the story going on, that he activated this clause and that he wanted Encham off the wage book for new arrivals. Like I saw nothing on the Celtic board about the websites about Encham's things. Like it's all paper talk at the moment. But is this clause thing true, Mark? Do you think between Rich and Hayes and Encham?
I don't think so. I don't.
You know what? I don't understand. Why would you terminate a player's contract? Why not just sell him? You're not telling me you can't get a few million for Cham. I know he's not had a good season.
Exactly.
You know, you're
£1 million. Even £1 million better than get nothing, Barry.
was it how long ago was it Porto? Was it 13 million that offered for Cham?
Yeah.
Was it maybe about 18 months ago?
12,
Yes.
13,
Was it as much as that?
12,
Yeah,
13,
and that was only 18 months ago, and we rejected it because listen, we know Cham, he's not delivered for Celtic for the last sort of year or however long it would be. He's still a good player. It's not worked out for him at Marseille, but on his day, if he turns up or he's in the right environment, he's a right good player. So for me, I don't buy into it at all that we're looking to terminate the boy's contract. I appreciate he doesn't have a future at the club, but go and sell him. I think you could still get 5, 6, maybe even 7 million for the boy. Somebody might pay that. Even Porto, if they've still got tags on him, thinking, well, we offer 13 million. Let's take a chance. Let's go and pay 7. I just don't buy it. I don't think he'll be at selling this season. I think he will be sold, but I just can't for the life of me understand why it makes any sense whatsoever to terminate a guy's contract.
That's it. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But like, they terminated Johnny Hayes and Joseph Siminovich contracts last season. Like, so I'm asking, like, is there such thing that we haven't?
See how you say terminate the contract, Paul. I know the way Celtic operate, and it's the same with Griffiths. The do deal, and Mark, you've spoke about it before. The do deals whereby it's a 4-year contract, but
and then they have
fixed,
the last
and
year
one's
is up to the club. Then yes.
Yeah. So for me, Hayes and Simunovic, that was the same as them. They had a deal, but the last deal was an option, and Celtic decided not to take that option. That's different from terminating.
The media are.
Yeah, that's not terminating a contract. You know that's just the club deciding, actually, you know what, we're not taking up the option to grant the last year of the contract that we spoke about, so we're not going to take up that option, so you're free to go. If that's in Cham's contract, fair enough, but they done it with Scott Sinclair, didn't they? They basically renewed his contract, and rather than sell him, they kind of just they didn't play him. So for me, I don't know. I think I certainly don't think they'll be terminate his contract. I think they'll be looking to move him on in the summer if they can get a buyer for him.
Because Barry, like, if you're going to terminate someone's contract, like there's going to be legal issues there and everything. Like, in there, if you're terminating a contract, like it's very hard to terminate a contract now, even in any job.
Well,
say the footballer.
Obviously,
yeah.
It'll be a mutual. If it was terminated, it would be like a mutual agreement deal.
Yeah, I think the word terminate.
It's not as if he's getting sacked.
And that's what you associate.
If Celtic have agreed to move it free, basically free him, give him a free transfer, they'll have had to pay him X amount of money. No a case of your cut. See that, what you're saying about for performances aren't up to scratch and that. No agent in the world would agree to any.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly.
That should come down to somebody's personal opinion. It's like us arguing, he's a great player for us, he does his job well, and Barry saying, no, I don't like him, he's rubbish, he shouldn't have been in the team. But that comes down to. So I don't believe that for a second.
Like, I couldn't see any agent putting a termination clause into anyone's contract. Like, you know what I mean? If they are, I'd get rid of my agent straight away. You know?
Oh, well, contracts will have termination clauses and things like that in them for even breaches of discipline and things like that, but they'll be covered by the UEFA regulations. If the way, see, like Barry's saying, the way it's been worded, terminated, as if Celtic have sacked him, just said, right, beat it. If he's been freed, and I don't believe he has, it will only be a contract terminated, it'll be a mutual agreement, or it'll be done that there was a year's option that we never knew about and Celtic's no took it up. It'd be something like that, but the stuff about his contract being terminated.
Exactly, like it's the way the media always twist as a negative story onto something, Barry, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, and you know, I don't really understand their angle at this one, but because who does that benefit? You know, like I say, if there was a year's option left that Celtic decided, you know what, we're not going to take it up, you know, they could potentially come to agreement whereby they say, you know what, and Cham, we'll not renew this, but, you know, we're not going to pay you any money because we're going to let you go for nothing. You know, they could come to agreement there, but I just don't believe it. I saw the story breaking yesterday, and I didn't even give it much time, to be honest, Paul. I just thought to myself, that's just a lot of nonsense.
As I said in the forum, see where it came from, the original site the story came from. It's just a clickbait hit-hooring site, and then it gets carried on to all these other places. And see the more these stupid clickbait sites get steamroll on Twitter, the more people believe it.
It's all to get views and subscribes and stuff like that, isn't it? Yeah.
Get clicks on the story. But it's the more places that carry the story, the more traction the story gets, and people start believing it. Instead of looking that the stories actually came from one source that's no trustworthy.
What is left in the Enchant's contract? Is it 2 years? Is it 1 year? 2 years, I think, isn't it?
I think it's 2 years.
2 years, like so, right?
It was when I looked up the other day when I read the story.
2 years. Like you couldn't see.
Well, you know something that makes it makes even less sense then.
Yeah.
Because why would you again use the phrase terminate somebody's contract that's got 2 years left when you're in a secure place that you can get a fee for him? It's not like in 6 months' time.
It's a year. 2022. That's
well, there you go. So
Celtic
Celtic will be looking to move him on this summer. There's no doubt about it.
But would you think a new manager might convince him to stay, or would you think he has his
That's what
chance?
I was say, Paul. 2 weeks ago, the stories on the internet was the new manager that nobody knows who is.
Yes, that's just I broke that. Yes.
And then 2 weeks later, they've just ripped up his contract and said, "Cheerio."
I remember I broke that story in the transfer rumours that I said Enchant could still have a future under new Celtic managers. Everyone has a clean slate. That's what I'm saying. Like the new manager still has to come into Celtic, and I can't see no one leave the club, bar or loan players at the moment, without a new manager in place to actually sit down and talk to these players, Barry. Do you know?
But you know what, Paul? I don't think Enchant wants to be there. I really don't. I don't think it matters who the manager is. I spoke on a previous podcast. I actually started to have question marks about his attitude when Brendan Rodgers was in charge. I remember certain games that he just didn't want to.
Because he wanted to leave again as well, Barry, didn't he? When Brendan Rodgers was there, he wanted to leave as well.
You know something? I can't remember it ever being sort of publicised that he wanted to leave at that time. But I'm just speaking from a personal point of view. I remember watching him in certain games. I remember one particular one, I think I mentioned it previously. We played a midweek game in the winter at Fir Park, and he was playing, and he was not interested at all. And that made me think this. I don't know, for as good a player as he is,
a bit like Rogic. He's not get that kind of laid back look about him constantly at the park. Although it's as if he's never really looked that kind of interested in doing a decent shift on the park.
Like, is that down to the French culture, do you think? Or is it just his attitude playing out?
Sorry, what, Paul?
I don't know.
I said, is that down to the French culture of French players, just this laid back attitude, or is it just Enchamp's attitude altogether that he's performing not consistently for Celtic?
The French players that do that have got the other side of the coin. You've got the skill to play that kind of game. Whereas he's not that type. Do you get what I mean? He's not like your outstanding player that he's going to give you so many wow moments kind of thing. So no, I don't. I think it's down to him. It's back to the same as Rogic. If he'd applied himself better, he'd be a much better player.
Like, it's not like, as Barry said, like, it's not like Celtic to let a player go knowing that they could get money off him still. And I'm sure there's teams still, like Southampton, I said they're probably still interested in a player like Encham.
Well, you can't tell me if Celtic let knowing that Encham is available for £2 million, there isn't clubs that would snap the hand off them for it.
And even at 2 million, it's a bargain for any club, really, that came in.
I'm saying 2 million, even £1.5 million is better than getting nothing. That's why the story doesn't make any sense.
And you're getting him off the wage bill as well, because he'll be on a decent wage. You're getting a transfer fee for him, plus you're getting him off the wage bill. So yeah,
he's on around
it's a non-story.
About 18 grand, I think, something like that. He's on he's on.
There you go. There's 18 grand that could be in somebody else's pocket. Somebody that wants to come and play for the club. And
especially like Mark, when we need all our funds for this big huge rebuild. Like I couldn't see Celtic letting him go for nothing. Like, you know what I mean? you know?
No, that's just every penny's in to get
Yeah.
into the melting pot, Paul.
hmm
You're better getting something than nothing, whether it is even only £1.5 million or £2 million.
So Rob McNair says they're taken from the Celtic website. Celtic are delighted that Cham has signed a new. This is going back like that. He signed a new contract,
22.
2022. Like so, he's a year up. Like so, like
But
there's
see, as well, I've put this on the forum before. See if you go back, if you Google it and you go back onto the Celtic website, it does the same thing with Scott Sinclair.
So do you think? Yeah, do you think maybe that's it?
The year, maybe this, see now that Rob's put that up, maybe this is another one of them. Because I've put links up on the forum before about it, about the Scott Sinclair thing, how they said it was a 4-year deal or whatever it was he signed, and then this he signed, and then the next thing, when it came to the crunch, it was a year's option thing. So
Yeah, do you think maybe that's it?
I don't know. It seems to be
Yeah,
a habit Celtic have got now.
at
Well,
the
see
last
if that
year
was
optional, isn't it?
see if that was the case, Mark. I would think, right, and I might be wrong, but I would think that if that was the case and it's a 4-year deal, but only 3 of it's fixed and the last year's an option, I would think from a business point of view, what Celtic would do is they'd say, right, we're taking that option up, but we're going to sell you. We're going to sell you in the summer.
Kind of.
You know,
We thought that was going to happen with Sinclair, really, didn't we?
Sinclair, but he ended up just no playing. But the difference was with Sinclair was in and around the team. You know, he maybe wasn't playing, or he maybe wasn't playing at the standard that he was, or he was maybe on the bench, but he was still part of the first team squad. He was still making a contribution. So you could understand, well, yes, they've renewed that, or they've taken up the option of that last year. It just so happens that he never played in that last year. Unfortunately, he ended up going away to Preston. But with Cham, I would be thinking from a business point of view, Peter Lawwell or Dominic Mackay would be turning and say, well, tell you what, we've got this option. We're going to take it up, but we're going to either find you a club or get your agent to find you a club and we'll sell you in the summer.
Is it good business to this last year optional, or is it bad business by Celtic, Mark, do you think?
Well, I think it would be good business because it seems that Celtic have all the power. It's not a case whereby the year's option has to be agreed by both parties. It's a case of, well, we'll decide if we take up this option or not. So I don't think it's a bad thing. It could work out positively. I don't think there's any losers in this part because if they're performing well, they're doing well. It probably doesn't even get to that last year that they'll extend the contract anyway. Or if they're not in and around the squad, like in Cham's case, the Celtic are in full control, whereby they can just turn around and say, well, actually, you know what? We're going to renew the contract, but you are free to leave. Not free to leave, but instruct your agent to find you a club in the summer. We are prepared to sell you. So I think Celtic are in full control of the situation. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
So just moving on from that, and before we go by, we at the start of the podcast there we talked about the obstacles like preventing Eddie Howe from signing for Celtic, be it his garden leave for Bournemouth and his coaching staff that he wanted a contract about. With that over now, do you think that we're going to have an announcement soon that like there's no more things to prevent announcement now out there, is there?
No, Paul, I've been saying on the podcast for the last month that there'll be an announcement very soon.
Next week, yeah.
I keep on saying it, but you know what? I actually watched that game with interest yesterday, the Bournemouth and Brentford game, and obviously with Brentford winning, that made me think it's kind of now or never with the Eddie Howe thing. Like I say, I've stuck by it all along. I've always said I believe Eddie Howe will be. Now, all these sort of conspiracies or reasons that
they're not there anymore. No, like there's no reason for them to be there. Yeah,
exactly. So it wouldn't surprise me to see Eddie Howe announced within the next 2 or 3 days, maybe even sooner actually.
And like even if it drags on, like would you think like if it drags on a bit more, would you think it's another manager and not Eddie Howe? Mark?
Is this not? Well, I think we spoke about it earlier on. It's got to be now or never, as Barry said there. There's no reason for it not to be announced. If it's no Eddie Howe, I don't see what's been holding it back.
Exactly. Like there's no holding back for any candidate. No, really. No matter who the manager is, every season's finished.
I'm expecting
know?
an announcement in the next week. There's got to be an announcement in the next week, one way or another, whether it's the director of football stuff or whether.
Can't see how it won't be Eddie Howe now. I can't see, because if the Celtic board were to turn around and say, well, yeah, we're appointing a manager this week, however, it's so and so, not Eddie Howe, I'd be thinking, so why is it taking this long?
Exactly.
You know, what's taken so long to appoint this guy? We've all thought it was Eddie Howe, and like I say, there's been underlying reasons as to why they can't make the announcement. So I might
Hinting that it's Eddie Howe, they know. Do you get what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They're hinting that they've been told this behind the scenes, and we know that Celtic, the same as every other club, have got their wee pet poodles in the press and on the internet.
Yeah, they they always kind of leak stuff out, Mark, don't they? Yeah.
There's always people kept in the loop with these things, and I'd be totally shocked if it wasn't Eddie Howe by this time. I don't see how it can be.
Especially with Stephen Rich coming out last week speaking about him, you know?
Yeah, that was interesting as well. And like I say, I sound like a broken record, but like I say, I hope when it is, or if it is Eddie Howe that's announced, I'd like to think that what will follow him will be a multitude of players. Because like I say, I'd like to think that he's been working hard in the background. And like you said it earlier, Mark, you know, I'd like to think that he's actually got players tied up, not just had discussions with them. I'd like to think that he's got guys that have agreed to come to the football club, and they'll be announced very shortly, as well as the manager and the director of football.
Do you think, though, like that Eddie Howe's reputation being with Bournemouth and have been successful in keeping the Premiership, that he will be able to attract good players to Celtic now, Barry? You know?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's not just, you know,
because
Eddie Howe obviously has had. He has had a reputation, you know, of playing a good brand of football with Bournemouth, and was it 6 years he managed to keep them in the Premier League? But also, you know, it's not just when you listen to other top class managers, you know, like Jurgen Klopp, Brendan Rodgers, other managers within Sir Alex Ferguson most recently, they've all been waxing lyrical about Eddie Howe. So he's clearly got this reputation as probably one of, if not the most highly regarded up-and-coming managers in British football. So there will be players that want to come and play for him.
I think that, Mark,
so I think absolutely he can attract players of a high calibre.
A mixture between Eddie Howe and Celtic should be enough to attract players for England. Hopefully it's guys at the level of Sinclair. Even we were talking about players earlier on. We forgot to mention Alan Thompson, the effect he had on the team. What a player he was. But you'd like to think that Eddie Howe's, Barry's saying, his reputation down in England and then being at a club like Celtic will be enough to attract a good level of player to us.
It's going to be an exciting week, lads. I think hopefully that, you know, we get a manager in place and we get stuck in on this rebuild. Like, I think by the whole frustrating thing is the not knowing and with the board being so quiet. That's the most frustrating thing of Celtic, isn't it? You know.
It is, Paul. But you know what? The silence is what's given me the confidence that it is all done and dusted.
Exactly.
I think that, you know, if they'd had their meeting with Eddie Howe, 2 months ago now, whenever it was, and it had been indicated that no, he wasn't coming or he was wanting to hold out for another club, Celtic would have moved on very quickly, and the press would have known about it. The press would have known that Eddie Howe's ruled himself out. So it's the silence from the board that's kind of given me the confidence that no, that this deal's done. But like I say, we need to announce it now because we're now approaching June. And the players will be back in for pre-season within the next 3 or 4 weeks with, you know, the Champions League qualifiers on the horizon. So, you know, we've spoke about it for a good few weeks now. The appointment needs to happen now so the fans know what's happening. We know what players are coming in. We know what players are leaving. Because, like I say, the pre-season will be starting probably about the third week in June. So we're only about 4 weeks away from that. So they really need to get a move on it and get the announcement made.
There's not much time really, Barry, like if they delay it anymore. Like, so there's not, you know, like the more you delay it, it's a disadvantage for the new manager coming to get his squad ready up for pre-season and the qualifiers, especially with the Euros being this season as well. It's going to be very hard to get players in, isn't it?
Well, you know what, Paul, it's not a lot of time at all, but like I'll go back and say what I've said previously. I'd like to think that, you know, that there's deals being done. There's players tied up. There's players that know, you know, they're going to be coming to Celtic. They've had contract negotiations and everything. That's what I'd like to think has happened. I certainly cross my fingers and hope that it's what it has, because if we're just going to start the recruitment process next week or the week after, no, it certainly does not give you a lot of time. And certainly with the volume of players that
leaving,
we expect to come in and the players that are going to go out the door, it's a very quick turnaround. So yeah, like I say, I'd like to think that process started a good 2 months ago, and we've got a number of deals, not just spoken about, actually done and dusted and just ready to announce.
Mark, do you agree with that, everything there? Yeah.
I agree with everything Barry said there. Just time to get it announced, get it out there, and we said it earlier, the deals, there's got to be deals worked on. See if it's just going to be another complete cock.
Mark, it does make sense like that. It is anyhow, because of all these things we're saying like that is delaying the transfer. It was his backroom staff and his coaches, and his guardian leave. Like it all makes sense that maybe they could have been why they couldn't announce it. Like, but it's over now. Like it's time to announce it if it is anyhow now. Do you know?
Well, the only other thing that'll be the next rumour on the internet. It's because his contract's not actually up to the 1st of June or the 31st of May or whatever it is. So
could be, Mark. It could be, yeah. Could be
another week. But maybe Barry. For me, it's got to be Eddie Howe. There's not even any talk about anybody else being in the frame apart from.
And if the Celtic board did get a sniff that he was sniffing around other clubs, they would have been on to different managers straight away, Mark, wouldn't they? You know.
I'd like to think that they'd be calling his bluff and telling him, look, don't be stringing us along here either. You've let us know you're seriously interested in this. If you're only using us to get English interest.
Ringing up Eddie Howe, telling that Dave Neil Lennon in the show was there. You want to hurry up there before he's finished.
But that's why I think that there has been a deal agreed. I don't know like what sort of contract you can do, whether it be a verbal or there is a sort of written contract that says, because like I say, Celtic, the board can't hang about. When they had that meeting back 2 months ago, it couldn't be left in the state that, well, I'll tell you what,
exactly.
I'm kind of interested, but at the same time I want to keep my options open. If that was fed back to the Celtic board, immediately the Celtic board should say, right, okay, well, you're no longer in the running for us. We need somebody that's going to be committed, and they would have moved on to the next candidate.
I think
because
so, Barry,
that's never come out. For me, that's what makes me think and believe that, no, that deal was agreed back then. It's done. Forget about Crystal Palace, Newcastle. Doesn't matter if the jobs become available. The deal's done. Because like I say, I'd like to think that if he indicated to the club or the board that he might be interested in taking up another job, he wants to keep his options open, at that point the board has to move on from that. We can't afford to wait about and see if a manager's going to come to us or not. We need to go on to the next candidate. So for me, like I say, I think the deal's done, and we'll hear about it very soon.
And Mark, his name has been there from the start, hasn't it? Eddie Howe. It was the name that, of all the names that kind of stuck around the Celtic manager's job for the last couple of months, Eddie Howe's name kind of never went away.
Kind of suited, didn't it? He was out of work and we were looking for a manager. But it's just what Barry's saying. There's got to have been these moves done and dusted behind the scenes. Just to have things in place for one reason or another, they can't announce it. And
you can't see him having no plan, Mark. Like, you know what I mean? I couldn't see Celtic have that. Like, not already having a plan behind the scenes. Like they're not going to tell us everything that's going on behind the scenes, Mark. So they're not.
If it's not Eddie Howe, Celtic already know who it's going to be. That's the kind of. Do you get what I mean? There's not been any stories about any panic. Oh, they're panicking. This one's turned them down. That one's turned them down, and all this kind of talk that you normally get in the paper. So if it isn't Eddie Howe, Celtic know who it is already. Do you get what I mean? It's either Eddie Howe or X, whoever, but Celtic know that's who it's going to be.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I agree, Mark. There's no way we're sitting here in the last week of May and the Celtic board don't know who the next manager's going to be. There's just no way that.
If it is, Barry, it's really bad management, isn't it, by Celtic?
Oh, it's beyond that. It would make me suggest the board are not fit for purpose.
Yes.
If we're sitting here at the end of May, weeks away from a Champions League qualifier with the biggest squad overhaul potentially in the club's history on the horizon, and we still don't know who our manager is. The board need to just call it a day, and we need a new direction. So, but like I say, I don't believe that that's the case.
So we leave it there, lads. And again, my thanks to Barry for coming on the show with us again, and my thanks for Mark for having us all on the show. Mark, I'll hand off to you now to close the show.
Thanks very much, Paul, for everything again. Thanks very much for joining us, Barry. You're brilliant on it every time you're on, mate. You're more than welcome. And thanks everybody for tuning in. If you've not subscribed, please do so, and remember and hit that like button. Thanks very much again, lads. Good night and God bless.
Hail. Bye.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.